good morning. First, I do want to thank Barack for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. It's a real privilege and an honor. And I also have to say that I can't agree more with what Fadi just said in all aspects. And in fact, I have a personal statement that after 40 years in this business, or in my career, I really do believe that technology and the unifying strength of multicultural exchange in the pursuit of problem solving and business growth can lead to profound economic, social, and global benefits, including world peace. I really do agree with that. And in that context, I could only apologize for this guy. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that his time spent in office is very limited. But let's move on to, I also want to say I've run out of business cards. So I downloaded Bilibam, and now you can find all of my contact information if you use that app. Thanks to the guys from Bulgaria. Yeah. So I spent 35 years of my 40-year career in startups and working with entrepreneurs. And so in 20 minutes or fewer, I'm going to take you from Electronic Arts to ABC Venture Gates. EA Sports, it's a game. All right, so we started that company 35 years ago, and just to tell you, I want to go back to that history because it's very relevant for companies today. We didn't have a garage. The Hewlett-Packard garage in Palo Alto, which was famous, was a certain model, and there's still plenty of those kinds of things going on. But we happened to all be executives when we started this company. At other companies, we were a little bit older, in our 30s, and we first met at our CEO's house in an upscale neighborhood behind Stanford called Portola Valley. And there were 6 of us that came together. Trip Hawkins was a Harvard strategy gaming undergraduate major and a Stanford MBA. Rich Melman, who was about 10 years older than we were, so he was in his 40s. He was a Berkeley physics undergraduate with a Stanford MBA. Bing Gordon was a Yale English major with a Stanford MBA. I was an anthropology major at Stanford with a Stanford MBA. Dave Evans was a mechanical engineering undergraduate and master's degree earner, or has a master's degree from Stanford in mechanical engineering. And Pat Marriott was the only woman among us. She was a marketing manager at Apple, and I don't actually know. I don't remember what college she went to. But anyway, the point is that we didn't do game development at all ourselves. We were just primarily marketing executives from places. I was at Atari. Bing was in the advertising agency. Rich was with a company called VisiCorp at the time. And so we weren't coders at all. None of us knew how to code. But even despite that, we were able to raise within 3 months from top-tier venture capital firms in the Bay Area a $5 million A round. And we didn't have, we had nothing. We had no products or anything, but we had the background and experience that made people like Don Valentine and Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield and Byers was the lead investor for us. We were able to convince them that we could produce what we said we could do, and we promised that if they would invest in us, we would have at least 6 titles, video game titles, released in the first 6 months. And in fact, and we also had some of the very best marketing that kind of changed the whole industry. This ad that we ran, there weren't many options in 1983 for getting advertising. There was no internet, no telephone, it was either print or TV, and so we couldn't afford television. And so we went into the print ads first. And the title of this is, I don't know if you can read it, it says, "Can a computer make you cry?" Well, this is the very early stages of home computer distribution, sales, that kind of thing. And we ended up being one of the reasons that people wanted to buy a home computer, was that so they could play some of our games. But we approached this with a very unusual attitude. All of this picture, the sepia tone or the magenta toned duotone, is all of our artists. That we went out all over the United States and found independent computer gaming developers, and we did contracts with them, hired them as independent artists, and we found, the reason I put the Beatles album photo in there is because we tracked down who the photographer was of that. It was a guy in Los Angeles, and we asked him to put together a thoughtful pose of our artists, because we were really serious about it, and we wanted to make people feel like that there was a possibility to get emotionally involved with a computer, which prior to that time, nobody was thinking in those terms. So by May, we got 7 products out. So we beat our commitment to the investors. And we also changed the industry by having this whole packaging of video games that was completely different from what had transpired before. It was exciting. It looked like record albums. We based our relationship with our artists kind of the same way that a record company would handle its A&R. And so this changed we began to see the change in video games come about as a result of what we were doing. Now, what were we thinking early on? I'm going to share with you some clips of some of some discussions that have never been publicized or publicly exposed. We only did this in-house, and it was to try to help build our culture and that kind of stuff. And we all believed what was going on, what we said.
We are trying to do. We have to be obsessed, and we have to be a little bit arrogant. We have to be a little bit cocky about having a sense of possibilities that are open to us that aren't open to others because of our convictions. And if we didn't feel that way, if we didn't even have a little bit of sense of not knowing what we don't know, and if we were too conscious of the pitfalls, if we were too conscious of the obstacles, we might lose our conviction. And we really do have a sense of really being obsessed with it and really believing that we know how to do it better than everybody else. And that may seem arrogant, but if we didn't feel that way, we wouldn't be able to pull it off. And it's because we feel that way that we're going to.
Okay, so 35 years ago, that was an attitude, a typical attitude of founders. We were all had that attitude. We knew something better, how to do something better than anybody else. And it's so hard. People tell you you're going to fail all the time. But it's the same attitude that I see in startup entrepreneurs in the Bay Area today. It's that same kind of mentality. It's part of the Silicon Valley mindset, I think.
We're at the start of things, and it's just settling down. How this business is really going to be run and organized is, I think electronic arts is going to be one of the leaders because of the professionalism of the people that are planning the organization and doing a lot of thinking about the structure of the artist relative to the producer inside the company, relative to the production and distribution aspects, all being, integrated into one package. It's more or less what the thinking's got to be. It used to be just a guy in his garage and start selling. And that's still true today to some extent. But it doesn't go very far. Bunch could tell you, you can try that and get your family involved and work on it. But in the end, you really need to understand how to market the product as well as develop it.
So that was Steve Wozniak in 1983. He was a board member and an investor. And the point that I wanted to bring forward from what his talk was, or his little clip there, was that you can't ignore marketing. It's a lot of times technology companies kind of downplay it, but it's extremely important.
It's possible for a computer to provide a world where the rules are open-ended, where if you're flying around the planet and decide to take off for that star, you can.
You can evoke in people a sense of, wonder, curiosity, intrigue. Maybe a little smile for a grandson who learned how to do something on a grandfather's machine.
I'd like to write some software that interacts with you in
designs just cause you to smile. When you look at it and you want to smile.
So the culture was we wanted to create software or publish software that gave you experiences you couldn't otherwise have and got you emotionally involved. Hardly anybody in 1983 was talking about a software friend.
Parents want products that have educational value, but products that their children are going to want to use. Kids that are interested in computing, they want products that are fantastically entertaining and exciting and compelling. And that's really the major part of the market.
We're focusing on younger people, and education is the most important thing in their lives. And entertainment is the most interesting thing, and it's usually divergent from education. All of a sudden with computers, we've got technology marrying the two together in a way that might be very productive.
So all of the objectives that we had when we started the company, and we thought that education and software was going to be a big one, that did not come true. But here's what people come up to me all over the world all the time and say, is that if you hadn't started Electronic Arts, I would never have gotten into programming, because I played the games, I wanted to learn how to do that, and it led me into learning how to be a programmer. And so on one level, we did combine the education, but we never were able to get into schools or do any educational software, although that's happening now with iPads more. So how do we build a company culture? That's extremely important to have a strong company culture. One of the things we did was all employees were interviewed all of our employees interviewed every applicant for every job until we had about 100 people. That meant that at that point, we were having, a single applicant would take weeks to get through all the 100 employees' interviews. But what that did was made the applicant feel like after 100 interviews and they got the job, they felt like they were the most important person in the world, most successful person in the world, and then every employee that interviewed an applicant felt like they were contributing to the culture and the building of the company. So that ended up being a double benefit for us. Okay, we also had Nerf battles. We provided Nerf guns and things for people in the company, and just to release tension and things, these would break out randomly throughout the week, maybe 5-10 minutes worth of Nerf battles, and then everybody go back to work. That helped build our culture. So did our Friday beer and wine meetings, where we had to, every Friday we had the whole company gather, we had beer and wine together, and the executives would stand up and answer any questions that anybody in the company wanted to ask, and that made it seem much more transparent and open. We also screened new movies for our employees. We didn't screen them, we rented a theater and took our employees to every new movie that seemed to have an important cultural aspect in the society, because we wanted everybody to keep up with that kind of stuff. So nowadays, companies that have campuses all over the Bay Area, they also have a huge auditorium where they do screen the movies themselves for employees. So this became a really common thing too. So now EA is still in business. Revenues are about $5 billion, and the market cap of the company is about $20 billion, and there's about 2,000 employees. So they have a headquarters campus in Redwood City, and it's still thriving. But how we built it, I think, set the stage for how it works now. Now, my path was quite a winding one. After EA, I went into the publishing and printing books business. I did 4 internet startups. I opened a hospitality club in Florence, Italy. I co-produced movies in Hollywood. I was the first executive director of the UC Berkeley startup accelerator called Skydeck. And now I'm president of the advisory board at ABC VentureGates. So there's this question that what happens after you go into an accelerator? And there's never been a clear answer, but you do have to start moving faster. And expanding means leaving your comfort zone and your home market in most cases, unless it's in the United States, that's your home market. That's a big enough market to keep you busy. But now for this part of the world, Germany and Europe is really the place to be. There's over $3 billion in investment that has taken place in startups in Germany in 2016, 2015. And there are all sorts of benefits to Munich because it is really the center of big business in Germany. And so there's all this, there's a central location. There are all these companies that are willing to have people, companies do internships or collaborate with them. It's got a lot of great universities, so you can pull employees out of them. If you're trying to enter the German market, you want to do it through Munich. There's also over 50 venture capital and companies that in the Munich area. 7 of the 30 companies listed on the DAX, which is the Frankfurt stock market, they only have 30 companies, but 7 of them are based in Munich. So it's a great business place to be, and you can find funding there. So if you are entering a new market, you're going to face challenges. You're going to have difficulties in getting your first clients. You're going to have a hard time, if you're on your own, renting flexible short-term office space. Munich is really crowded. Finding a place to live is really tough in Munich. And the market response is completely different in the German markets, and it can be very tough. So the best thing for you to do, really, is to find help in facing those challenges among people that have already done this many times before. And so you want to have all of that stuff like housing and office space and legal issues and accounting. You want to have all of that taken care of for you so you can focus on just doing the best you can do, which is grow your startup and enter a new market. Similar kind of facility happens in the San Francisco Bay Area through ABC. ABC Venture Gates is the Munich version of this, and there's no lockstep program. Everybody that comes when they need to. They can come from 1 month to 6 months in order to get themselves established in the German market, and we provide housing and office and assistance, introduction to potential clients and introduction to venture capitalists or investors. So we're dedicated to expansion and growth and success. And so if any of you are interested, we'd love to talk to you about entering the market in Germany. And then there's always the open possibility of also moving to Silicon Valley, where the same kind of structure exists to help you enter the U.S. market. And as I say, I appreciate being able to talk to you today. I hope that some of this, looking 35 years ago at how we did things at Electronic Arts, and we still exist, and they're still very profitable, is at least revelatory of what you can accomplish, and there's also a lot of luck involved in all of this. Anyway, I thank you for your attention, and see you later.